Welcome to Blonde Cards and Crafts. Let's make something together. So let's make our first card using the Many Thanks January card kit from LovefromLizi. This piece of card I have is 12 by 6 and I've scored it at 6 on the long side. Once you fold that in half, it'll give us a 6 by 6 card base. Now you can buy these ready-made. You can make your own. If you don't have a 12 by 12 piece of cardstock to make yours, then you can make it using an A4 size piece of cardstock. So here's my card base that I've made using a 6 by 12 piece of cardstock, but you can make yours using a piece of 6.5 by 6 and a piece of 6 by 6. That's what I have here, these two. And on the 6.5 on the long side, if you score it at 6, you'll have this 1/2 inch tab here at the end. If you fold that over, you can then glue that to your 6 by 6 piece. So I'll fold this over, and once this is folded, now we have a 6 by 6 piece with a little tab, and if we glue that on to our other 6 by 6, we have a 6 by 6 card base. So I was asked, what do I do if I don't have a sheet big enough to make a 6 by 6 card base? This is what you do. You just use what you have in your stash. Either cut a 6 by 6 piece and a 6 by 6.5 piece and score that at 1/2 inch to give you a 6 by 6 card base. You can buy them ready-made or use a 12 by 6 piece. Okay, so that's out of the way. I wanted to share that first off. So now I'm going to make my first card. We got beautiful vellum, a couple of sheets of that in this kit, and I'm going to put this on my first card. Now this piece measures 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. I've also got a strip. This white strip measures 2 by 5 3/4, and on top of that I'm going to put a piece measuring 1 3/4 by 5.5. I've taken one of the tag punch outs. I've used the thank you stamp that came in the kit. We got a fabulous set of stamps in the kit. So many thank yous on this. It'll definitely be one I'll reach for often when I need to make a thank you card. But I've used this thank you here, and I've also used some of Lizi's embossing powder to put the sentiment on, and the embossing powder, oh my gosh, I keep saying folder. The embossing powder was the royal gold embossing powder. I've also used one of these little flags, or I don't know, what are they called, flags? Yeah, it's a punch out. And then I've taken this strip of paper, and it's 1 inch by 5 3/4, and I'll pop that inside, and then I'll stamp a sentiment. The sentiments I'll use in some of my cards will be from a different sentiment stamp set. We got these lovely straight gold glitter peel-offs in the kit, and I'm going to use those to embellish the front of our card. So I'm taking these peel-offs and I'm going to decorate the left-hand side using 2 of them. And I'm also going to decorate the strip of pattern paper that's going to run down the middle. So they're very easy to use. I use the grid lines on my mat so that I get them even, and I'm just folding them over the edge just to stick them down. Once that goes onto the pattern paper, they won't come up. But I find that the peel-offs are really good once you apply some pressure to them. Once you pop them down, then apply pressure. The glue really does adhere well. Just apply some pressure to them, and that will ensure that they don't come off. Well, I haven't had any problems with any peeling off, and I haven't had anyone come back to me saying they've peeled off, so that's just what I know. Okay, so I have embellished my 2 pieces of pattern paper. I'm using a tape runner on the back of the vellum here, and if you cover all the vellum with adhesive, then I find you don't see through. If I just put a line down one side and the other, you kind of see the difference. And you'll notice here I'm only doing it around the edges of this large square. But once I put it into place, if you look really hard, you can see where the adhesive goes. But guys, this is a handmade card. Anyone looking that close, well, I don't know if they deserve a second handmade card, but this is just what I do. You can apply some liquid glue behind the parts of the card or your vellum that have been, you know, embellished so that you can see it. But to be honest, I don't do that. I put my glue down wherever I want, and that's that. So there you go. That's what I do. Okay, so now I'm going to add the tag, and you saw I had some foam tape behind that, and then I'm going to add my little flag or banner, and I'm going to stick that down to the top right hand corner. That was Buster barking. I don't know if you heard him, but he wanted to go out for a piddle, so that's what he did. Anyway, once I've that done, I'm going to stick this piece of pattern paper inside, and I've made sure that it's in the same orientation as our vellum on the front. I'm taking this stamped sentiment, and there'll be links to the products I've used down below. I'm going to stamp that inside. I just felt I wanted a nice sentiment inside, and what's on the stamp set is just thank yous, so I've gone with that. So that's it, that's card number 1. Now we're moving on to card number 2. Card number 2 is in a twisted easel style. So for this, I'm using a piece of 10 by 7. I've scored it at 5. And I'm also going to do a second score line with this, and I'll need to do it on the diagonal. You can see there I have a score line from the top right down to the bottom left. So I'm going to use my scoreboard to show you how I did that. So my scoreboard has lots of lines on it, and I use it to help when I'm doing score lines like this. So you can see I have the top right hand corner, and I'm scoring right down to the bottom left hand corner, and that's going to give me this diagonal score line. So once I've that done, I'm going to burnish both score lines, and then we'll move on to the pattern paper that we're going to need. I'm using this beautiful black and gold pattern paper, and you can see again I have a line cut from the top right to the bottom left, not a score line this time, and that's so that I can then put these on each corner. Now my pattern paper measures 4 3/4 by 6.5, and once I cut them diagonally down the middle, it means that when I pop these down on my card base, I have a lovely border going all the way around both pieces. I've taken another one of the punch outs, and this is 3, well, it's just short of 3. It's 2 7/8 by 5 3/4. I want to add another piece of the pattern paper along here to cover up the numbers, and I've die cut out this piece in some of the gold vellum. This is one of the dies that come in the kit, and I think it's just beautiful, and it die cut out beautifully on my Big Shot Plus using the vellum. We also get this scalloped edge die, and I die cut that out in white paper. It's 300 GSM cardstock. I've used one of the little stamps that came in the set to give those splotches in the background, and then I used a thank you from the stamp set. The strip of pattern paper there to my right is 1 inch by 6 3/4, and I put some foam on that. That'll be the stopper for inside our card. So I've taken my tag here, I'm putting some glue to the bottom right hand corner. I want it just to stick down onto that triangle there. Once that's adhered down, then I can add a peel off to my patterned paper on the tag, and I'll only go up as far as the end of that extra piece that I stuck down. I've taken my die, this lovely rosette die, and I've die cut this out in some vellum gold paper that came in the kit. I've also taken the little die that we get that die cuts out the center of our rosette. I've done that on white cardstock, and I've stamped thank you, as well as using the little splotch stamp in that. I'm taking some of the heart peel-offs that came in the add-on kit. I'm going to put 3 on the left top of our card there. I'm going to put 1 beside the U on the thank you in the front of our card. I'll also put 2 inside our card, and I'm going to put 3 on the bottom of our stopper piece here that I'm adhering down. So when we twist the easel, we'll use that piece as our stopper. So you can see there I'm putting my two little hearts on the sentiment, and the sentiments that I'll be using in this kit are from the Christina Collection Verses. So I'm just going to finish up by putting the three little hearts then on the stopper part, and that is card number 2. And I love this twisted easel, something different, I think. Lovely. Okay, so now let's move on to card number 3, and that's going to be a birthday card. So for this card, I have again a 12 by 6 piece of card, which I have scored at 6, and that'll give us a 6 by 6 card base. On the front of that, I have a piece of patterned paper measuring 5 3/4 by 5 3/4, which is also the measurement for the white piece of card going inside. Then I have 2 pieces of black cardstock and 2 pieces of patterned paper. The black ones measure 2.5 by 4.5, and my pattern paper measures 2.25 by 4.25. My black strip measures 1 inch by 5 3/4, and then I have some pattern paper measuring 3/4 of an inch by 5 3/4 to go on top. I'm going to embellish that using one of the bows. These are the punch outs, and then I have a happy birthday sentiment here that I've die cut out using dies in my stash. So I have glued down all my mats and layers on my pattern paper as well as my piece on the inside, and I'm going to attach my bow now using a little bit of glue, liquid glue as well. For the happy birthday, I was just going to put the happy birthday on the left piece and the right piece there, but I kind of felt it got lost, so I wanted to do something with the rosette die. What I've done is I have cut the tails off the rosette die, which I die cut out in white, you can see it here, and I'm going to stick my happy birthday onto that piece, and then I will stick that down into the center of our card above the bow. I just think that this brings a better focal point to the front of the card, and I really like that. I think it pulls out the white that's in our silver pattern paper as well. So once I have that glued down, I'm then going to embellish the front of our card, and to do that I'm going to use some of the faceted gems that we got in the kit. I'm going to use 6 white ones, 3 on one side of the bow and 3 on the other. And then once we have that done, it's just a matter of embellishing the inside of our card. Inside I've stamped "It's your birthday, let's celebrate." And these are 2 stamps that I have in my stash, and again I'll link them down below. So that's the inside of our card finished and the outside, and now we're moving on to card number 4. For card number 4, I'm going to use a piece of cardstock measuring 10 by 7. I've scored it at 2.5 and at 5. I'm going to fold it in half and then fold back on itself, and this is going to give us a Z-fold card base. So with this Z-fold card base, I'm going to put some mats and layers on it. I have a piece of silver cardstock measuring 4 3/4 by 6 3/4, some pattern paper measuring 4.5 by 6.5, and then I have this white piece measuring 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. And that'll sit on the main part of our card there, and we can stamp a nice sentiment on that as well. I have 2 pieces of silver card, and these measure 2 1/4 by 6 3/4, and the pattern paper is 2 by 6.5. Then onto that I'm going to put some dies. This round die is a 4 5/8 width. Now I just used a plain circle die that I had in my stash to die cut that out. On top of that then I'm going to put this die. This one that I die cut out is from the Love from Lizi scalloped circle dies that we got a couple of kits back. I've used the stickers that came in the kit, the square ones as well as the letter ones, and I have to say they have stuck down really well onto my die cut circle. I added some pressure to them using my fingers. I didn't use a bone folder for that, but they have stayed on no problem, and this is about 2-3 days later. I also made up another one of the bow punch outs. I'm going to add that to the top. And then to the bottom, I'm going to add some more of our faceted gems. And these are the diamond ones, or the clear ones, that I'll add. Now I have my mats and layers glued down. All I need to do now is add my die cut circle and scalloped circle. So this one I've added foam tape behind this to give a bit of dimension. I'm going to use a little bit of liquid glue on the foam, and that's just so I can position it well. It gives a little bit of wiggle room. So I need to stick this down, and only half of it needs to be stuck down onto that one panel there on the left. Once I make sure it's nice and straight, I'm delighted with that. So for a finish now, I'm going to glue down my little bow. Lovely. And then I'm going to add down our faceted gems. On the inside, I'll stamp one of the verses, and it is for two very special people: a wish for you today, for a forever kind of love that will never fade away. And once that's done, that will be card number 4, all finished. And now we're moving on to card number 5. Again, this is a 5x7 card, so I have a piece of 10x7 scored at 5. On top of that, then we'll need some pattern paper. This piece measures 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. Again, it's pattern paper from the kit. I have another piece here. This piece measures 2 1/4 by 6 3/4, and our pattern paper measures 2 by 6 3/4. It's the full length. I've taken one of the punch out envelopes that we put together in our previous video. I've stuck down the flap to the inside. I have 2 of these punch out pieces as well, which again I stuck together so they fill the whole of the envelope. Rather than them being loose and moving around in the envelope, I wanted them to sit in nicely. I stamped a thank you that you can see there on the front of that, and there's room underneath that for a little message, so you could put, to my special friend Sharon, or whatever you want, you know. Okay, so I also got this add-on pack with my kit, and there are these beautiful gold glitter wavy peel-offs on the front. There's the stickers in there with the little hearts, as well as the holographic and plain gold. So I'm going to use the wavy gold glittered ones, and I'm going to put that onto my pattern paper panel. This one here in the white with the gold dots, as well as onto our gold patterned paper, that large piece there. I'm going to put some onto that and embellish it all. And it just, I'm looking at the card here in front of me, and I love this. Those peel-offs are just wow. Like, I think the card, when I had laid everything down and looked at the card without the peel-offs, when I was prepping, I thought this is lovely, but with the added peel-offs on them, it just lifts the whole card. It makes it really opulent, and that's what I love about this kit. The papers in them, they're so opulent. They're not just for a thank you card or a birthday card or a wedding card. They're just fabulous. So as much as I'm embellishing my cards, I'm not doing too much with them, because I think the papers and the punch outs, I think they just speak for themselves, you know. So I have my mats and layers now glued down. I'm going to add a little bit of foam tape to the back of our envelope, not to the pull-outs, because I want them to be able to come in and out. That way you could put a little message on there if you wanted, but I like having a little bit of dimension to the front of the card. And you don't have to do that. You could glue it straight down if you wanted, and then you wouldn't have the dimension on the front. But I love a bit of dimension on the front. I'm stamping again one of the sentiments from my stash: someone special, someone kind, you're the one who comes to mind, just to say a big thank you for all the lovely things you do. And with that done, all I need to do now is take some of the lovely sequins that came in the kit. I'm going to add 3 of the large black sequins to the front top right hand corner of the card. I'll glue them down with a little bit of my liquid glue, and then I'm going to fill them with some glossy accents. And when the glossy accent dries, it dries shiny and clear, so it gives a filled look to the sequin, and that's just what I like to do, but you don't have to do that if you don't want. And that then is our 5th card. We're halfway through now. Let's move on to card number 6. This card is a 5x7 card base, and I have a lovely piece of grey cardstock that I'm putting on top, and it measures 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. Onto this panel, I'm going to add some of the gold straight glitter peel-offs that we got in the kit, and I'm going to put them on the bottom right corner. I've got 2 tags, and I'm going to place this hello tag over the sentiment on the large grey tag, and I have some of these flags that I'm going to embellish the front with. So I'm going to speed everything up now as I embellish this panel, and you can see there I'm laying down my peel-offs in a diagonal line, and I'm trying to keep an even distance between them, and it's a little over a half an inch. I actually measured it, and it's 5/8 of an inch is really what the gap is, but you can do this at however big or small a gap you want between them. I'm kind of using the grid lines on my mat to help with getting everything nice and even. And you can see there then I'm just folding the little excess pieces behind, and the little pieces that I cut off from my peel-offs, I put them back onto the peel-off sheet because they can come in handy sometimes too to use. So if you've anything more than an inch or an inch and a half in peel-off left over, I'd recommend you keep them. You never know where they might come in handy. Okay, so on these little flag pieces, there is an embossed line along the top of them, so you can fold them over or wrap them around some string, but I'm cutting them off. So I've cut off from the little score line there along the top. Now I'm just fitting them in nicely onto the card panel. I have the 3 there, and I'm going to add our big tag down. Then on top of that, I'm going to add that smaller little hello piece. I've decided I'm going to put one more flag underneath, but I'm going to turn it around. So again, I'm cutting off the excess above the score line, because if I left that piece on, it would be too long and it wouldn't fit nicely in that little piece there. So I have a little piece left over, and I'm going to put that on the top above the tag just there. So I'm just popping that down, and I'm using my liquid glue. The only thing that'll have a bit of dimension on the front panel is going to be that hello little tag piece that's there. And the foam I'm using is just foam that I got in my €2 shop, or the pound shop, or Target, whatever it's called where you live. And I've just popped that down. I think it's actually for excluding drafts, but it works perfect on cards. It's really sticky. So again, I'm going to use my Cosmic Shimmer glue to glue down my panel to the front of our card base. And once I have that down, I'm then going to take some of those lovely faceted gems that we got, and I'm going to use the ones that look like they're the pewter colored ones. So I have one big one and then a smaller size either side. Next, I'm going to use again one of the sentiments from the Christina collection. This one reads, "This crafted card, handmade with love, created just for you, is sent to wish you happiness in everything you do." And that's card 6, all finished. And now we're moving on to card number 7. This card is a 5x7 shutter card, so you'll need a piece of cardstock measuring 10x7. You'll score it at 2.5 and at 7.5. Fold and burnish the score lines, and that will give you a gatefold card. And this is the card base for our shutter card. On top of that, then we'll need some pattern papers. And for that, I have 4 pieces of pattern paper. These measure 2¼ by 6¾ We'll need 2 for the outside and then 2 for the inside here. So our doors are covered inside and out. Next, we'll need a panel that goes in the center here. This panel that I have measures 3¾ by 7 inches long, and it's going to sit in the middle. On top of that, I'm going to add a piece of pattern paper. This is 3½ by 6¾ and it'll fit on our center panel like so. We're going to die cut out a hole in these two panels, but we'll glue them together first. And the reason for that is I want to use the rosette on the front. Now you can see here is the rosette, and you can see where I clipped away all the center part. So it'll give me this rosette. I want to be able to see through the rosette, through the two panels, to a sentiment I'm going to stamp inside. So you can do lots of things with this rosette. You can cut the flags off the bottom, you can cut the center out of it, lots you can do. And I'm using a die that I have, a circle die, that'll fit in my stash. So once I have this down, I have an idea of where I want to die cut my piece out. So I'll glue these two pieces together and let it dry. That way when I go to die cut it out, it'll die cut out nicely. Now I have this piece of cardstock and you want 2 of these and they measure 4 by 3. I have a template here and it'll show you what I want to do. I want to score at 1/2 inch on the long side, and then at 2 3/8 in, I'm going to measure down 1.5 inches and put a little pencil mark there. That'll give us the middle. Then I can cut from that center pencil mark out to the top right and the bottom right, and it'll give us this funny shape. We want 2 of these. These are the aperture, the opening that are going to have in the center of our shutter card. So you can see there we have our score line at 1/2 inch, and then if you measure over 2 3/8, then come down 1.5, put a little dot there, and then cut from that to the top right and from that to the bottom right, and that'll give you those. So I hope you take a little screenshot of that, and that way you'll have it. So I'm now going to cut up and into our center point and make my 2 little pieces for my aperture. Perfect. And it's as simple as that. Just remember, you'll see these, so you want them nice and neat and tidy. When you have your 2 pieces cut out, you're going to turn one around. So you have one with your 1/2 inch score line on the right and one with the 1/2 inch score line on the left, and you want to join them together like so. This is going to be the aperture on the inside of our card, and it will go behind our panel that we'll die cut out. Because we're going to have pattern paper on the inside of our card doors, I'm also going to need a place for our sentiment, and that I'm going to add to the back of our card base. So this piece is 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. I have a strip of pattern paper measuring 1 inch by 4 3/4 across the bottom, and I've embellished that using some of the holographic peel-offs that came in one of the add-on peel-off sets. You can see it here. There's actually 4 different sets of peel-offs that you get inside this. So there's the white with the silver edge, you have the grey, you have the holographic, and you have the black. So definitely have a look on Lizi's website and have a look at those add-ons that you can get. I have my patterned paper glued down to our card base. I have die cut out my opening, and now I'm putting some foam strips on the back of our die cut panel. I have these little strips here, and if I can find them available on Amazon where I got them, I'll link them below. But you just need to put some foam strips to lift it up a little bit so the mechanism will work nice and smoothly underneath. And you can cut some strips off your foam tape that you have in your stash. So once I have that prepped, I'm now going to stick that down. I'll peel the release paper off our foam tape and then I'll sit that in place, and I want it set nice and evenly in the middle. I want the same amount overlapping on the right as what's overlapping on the left. And once that's set in there, then I have my two little mechanism pieces together. I'm going to slide them underneath, and you'll see our 1/2 inch score lines comes either side of that central panel. Add a little bit of liquid glue to those 1/2 inch panels and then close over your doors. Make sure the little center point of the mechanism is in the center of our die cut opening. Then once we've allowed that to dry, we then go ahead and stick in the rosette piece that we have. Now I felt this was a masculine card, so I cut out some little holographic squares and stuck them down over the flowers that's in those little pieces there on the rosette. I'm going to use my Collal glue to glue down my panel on the back with my birthday sentiment. It just adds a bit of strength to the card base. To finish, I'm going to add a belly band to this piece. It's a length of the patterned paper and it's 1 inch in width. I'm going to overlap it. Now I have these together. I have it loose enough I can slide it up and down, but not too loose that it's going to slide off by itself. So it's a matter of finding a nice balance yourself. I've used the die cut piece that came out of our inside panel for on top, and then I've taken one of the punch outs and I have stamped happy birthday on that. I'll put a bit of foam tape there to add a little bit of dimension. And there you go. That is card 7, our party time shutter card. Isn't it fab? And now we're moving on to card number 8. This will be a 6x6 swing fold card or tent fold card, and I'm doing this in 2 pieces. The piece I have here, it measures 6 by 8.5, and I have scored it at 1/2, 1.5, and 2.5. Then I also have another piece of card here, and this piece measures 6.5 by 6, and I have scored this at 1/2 inch. So this piece will be where the 1/2 inch score line is will be the top, and these with our 3 score lines will be the bottom. So I folded it in half, back on itself and back over again. This is going to allow us our tent fold in our card. Now normally I would take a 6x6 card base and cut this part out separately, but I figured I'd show you a different way to make this. And it's a really easy way of making a 6x6 tent fold card base. So I've scored the 1/2 inch on this piece, and this is going to be our front piece, and then the other one is going to be our back piece. Now you can either glue your 1/2 inch tab there onto the inside, or you can put it over the back piece and glue it down. So it's up to yourself what way you want, but it's going to, the 2 pieces will be glued together. Okay, so this is the back piece, and it has all our little pieces there for our tent fold. On the back of that, I have stamped my sentiment. Again, it's your birthday, let's celebrate. To this, I'm adding a strip of patterned paper, and this piece is 1 inch by 5 3/4, and it'll sit on the back there just like that, and it ties the front of the card to the back of the card. Then this piece with our 1/2 inch tab, this is the front of our card base, and to this we need to add some mats and layers. I have a piece of patterned paper here, and it measures 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. We're going to stick this down, and we're going to die cut again an opening out of it, and I'll use the same die that I used in the last card. This one is die cutting out an opening big enough for, again, our rosette, which I have trimmed the center part out. You can see here how a rosette looks when it's die cut, and then when I have cut that inside piece away. So I want to make an opening on the front there big enough so that I can see through my rosette. I've also used the other die that came, the scalloped edge die, and I have used the Queen for the Day die. I have die cut the Queen for the Day out in gold, and then I have put a white die cut piece on the back of that. And the little bits in the for and the day, I kept those so it finished off the sentiment. So this piece is going to be inside our card, swinging over and back. So for inside our card to make it swing, we need two pieces. This piece here measures 2.5 by 3/4 of an inch. I've rounded over one end, and in the middle there near the top, I've punched out a hole. I have another piece that measures 2.5 by 1.5, and I've scored it at 1/2 an inch, 1.5, and 2.5. I've folded it in half, and using the same punch, I've punched out another hole between the two pieces there. Then the little score lines on the top here are for our little wings, and I'm going to fold them back away from each other. This part will sit up between our card base, and then this part we'll use a brad to join these two together, and the brad will allow this piece to swing over and back with our Queen for a Day piece attached to that. So this is the mechanism in essence which will allow our Queen for a Day to swing over and back inside our tent fold card. So I've glued down my pattern paper, I've die cut out my opening. Now I'm going to add my rosette to this front panel, and I'll add some liquid glue to this so it allows me to sit this down and gives me a little bit of wiggle room lining up the opening with our rosette itself. Now I'm going to join my front panel to my back panel, and again I'm using the Cosmic Shimmer glue. This is a quick grab glue, and I'm going to stick my little tab there to our back panel. Lovely. Once the glue has set or dried, then I'm going to add my mechanism. So I've edited that little piece out there so that it is actually set and dried. Now I'm finding the center point and I'm putting a pencil mark in there. I'm going to glue my little mechanism piece together, but I haven't glued the tabs together. I'm adding some glue to the tabs, and I'm going to stick them down astride the center line inside. So you can see one of the tabs is glued to the back of the card and the other one is glued to the front of the card. Now we need to add the little swing mechanism, and to that I'm going to use a little brad like I've said. The brad is going to go through the front of our little mechanism piece there and through the piece that is glued to our card base, and I'm using this little tool to fold the legs of the brad over. You need to make sure that the back of these, that the legs of the brad are closed over but not too tight. If they're too tight, the little piece won't swing there that we're going to attach our Queen for the Day to. So make sure when you close the legs or open the legs of the brad or the split pin that they're opened fully, but they're not pressed down on that little mechanism. And there you go, it swings beautifully. You can't see it because when it's lying flat it's kind of hard to see, but I will add a little video of how it looks when it's stood up and it's swinging. I love this style of card. I think it's so cute, and I've given a few cards like this to people and they just love it. They think it's so cool and it brings a smile to my face. I've used my little happy birthday dies to die cut out happy birthday sentiment in gold, and I'm going to glue that down to the front of my card. Now, as far as I was concerned, I was finished with this card. I was going to add a couple of gems to the front, which I will do, and I thought that's lovely. But I was sitting there looking at it thinking it's missing something. So I made a little few adjustments. I'm going to add some pattern paper and some peel-offs to this card front, and I think you'll agree that it's lovely finished as it is, just adding the few gems around. The black faceted ones is what I've used, and the happy birthday. I do think it looks lovely, but It needed something more. So this is what I've done. I've cut some strips of black and gold pattern paper, and I've cut a piece that measures 5.5 by 5.5. I've added it behind the queen for a day. You can see it just inside there. I used some liquid glue and stuck that in, and I felt that that really did make the queen for the day pop better. Now, because I added that panel inside the card, I wanted to bring it to the front and the back on the outside of the card. So I cut two little strips. They're literally an eighth of an inch in width. They're nearly the width of a peel off. And I added a strip to the top and bottom, as well as some of our gold straight peel offs with those. And then I did the same to the front. I added two strips that are 1/4 of an inch by 5 3/4, one to the top, one to the bottom, and then bridged those using the straight peel off. So I hope you like that card. For card 9, I have this piece measuring 10 by 7. I've scored it at 5 and it's given us a 5 by 7 card base. I have a panel measuring 4 3/4 by 6 3/4, and I'm going to embellish that panel. I'm going to use one of these stamps as well as a thank you stamp, and we're going to stamp our imagery on the front of our panel. I'll also use some peel offs to embellish it at the top and the bottom, as well as a little gem. So let's go ahead now and make our panel. So my panel is set on a piece of computer paper. I have taken some Memento London Fog ink and I'm stamping across the panel, and I'm going from the top working the way down, and you can see there I have 2 stamped at the top. I want this to look as if it's a piece of pattern paper that I've cut this panel out of, so hence the reason that the stamping is staggered to make it look that way. So I have 4 rows, and now I'm going to stamp using my Onyx black ink, my Versafine Onyx black ink, and I have stamped my thank you down using the first generation or the solid black image. The rest of them, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp off once and then stamp over our images, because I want it as a second generation inking. I want this black to be lighter than the first thank you that we did. So it's a subtle thank you in the background. Once we have that done and our panel is dried, we can then take our peel offs and add them to them. So like I said, I'm going to use the black peel offs, and I'm going to use the widest peel off and then the second widest peel off. So we have a thick one and the second one isn't as thick. And I'm just going to use those 2 different widths on the panel, 2 at the top and 2 at the bottom. And again, I've cut them a little long so that they can be folded underneath the panel, and that way when the panel is glued down, our ends are glued under the panel. You don't need to do this if you don't want to. I just like to make sure that they're secured in place. But like I said, if you burnish the peel offs really well, they shouldn't lift for you. I'm adding some liquid glue to the back of the panel, and the glue I'm using is the Collal Glue. So I know that once this dries, it'll be nice and solid, stiff and strong. Perfect. So my thank you, I'm just going over it with my black marker that I have. The marker I'm using is the Memento dual tipped marker, and I don't need to go over it. The stamping is perfect, but by using this marker, it really does intensify the black on the color. Again, I'm going to stamp my sentiment inside, my someone special, someone kind, you're the one who comes to mind, just to say a big thank you for all the lovely things you do. And once I have that stamped down, I'm also going to take the same thank you stamp that I used on the front, and I'm going to stamp that underneath our sentiment. And to that, I'm going to add a little exclamation mark using my Memento marker. And there you go, that is our 9th card. Now we're moving on to card number 10. This card is going to be a slimline card, and I have slimline envelopes measuring 8.5 by 4.25. So my slimline card base is going to be 8.25 by 4. So for that I'll need a piece measuring 8 by 8.25, and I've scored it here then at 4. And that will give us the card base. So you can make them to whatever size. I know different ones have different dies, so you know. I have a piece of pattern paper and I have a piece of white cardstock, and they measure 3 3/4 by 8. And on this white piece I've stamped a sentiment and used one of the stamps from the stamp set for inside to decorate. And I'll decorate that with a strip of pattern paper as well, but we'll get to that in a minute. And you'll see in a lot of the cards I used a strip of pattern paper to embellish, just like this one. And it's something I picked up off the lovely Kirsty Marcotte. This piece measures 1 inch by 8.25, and I'm going to tuck that in there to the left. Okay, so for on the front of our card, I'm going to add this grey strip, which measures 1.25 by 7.25. And this piece of vellum, and it's got the gold on the vellum, measures 1 inch by 7 inches. Lovely. Then I've taken these 3. Now this was one of the long punch outs. I've cut it into 3 and then I fishtailed the end. So they measure about 3 inches in length by, it's a 1/2 inch in width. And I'm going to place the 3 of these on here. Now I'm showing you a layout, but I'm not going to actually lay it out like that. I'm actually going to put it onto the other side. I've got this queen for a day. What I've done is I've taken a punch out, put some foam on the back of it, and then the letters from our swing card, I have put them on this. And I've also made up another little bow, and I'm going to put that on the front as well. And I'm going to put that underneath the queen for a day. So that's going to be the front of our card layout. Let's speed everything up and assemble it now. I've already stuck down my white panel inside with the sentiment as well as the strip of pattern paper. And now I'm just going to assemble the pieces for the front of this card. I would like to thank everyone who's watched my video, and I know I'm running a little behind with the Love from Lizi kits with the wedding in November, the house move in December. Hubby and I got our booster shots the week after we moved into the new house, and unfortunately it kind of hit the both of us bad. We both ended up with flu symptoms, which kind of knocked us, you know, for 2 nights, I suppose, and then a couple of days recovering. But hubby got shingles, and apparently a lot of people in Ireland who got the booster jab and got the Moderna ended up getting shingles. So I don't know if you've ever had that, but it affects the nerves, and it generally goes from the center of your spine around your waist area, and if it travels along the nerves, it's like pains, hot pains. It's very debilitating. Hubby had that up until really last week. This week is the first week that he's only had intermittent pains along the nerves, so it's kind of held us back a bit with getting things done and getting my craft room sorted and getting my mojo back. I kind of found that hard as well with the move and everything, getting my mojo back. But I have to say, Lizi's kits, I just find it so easy to come into my craft room, sit down with her kits and just make cards. And when I'm doing my 10 cards 1 kit video, I do like to actually design out my 10 cards, and then when the kit comes in I go from there. But I find Lizi's kits inspire me, and I hope what I make inspires you. If you have the kits, that they inspire you, and that if you don't have the kits, maybe you might have a look on Lizi's website. She has a fantastic website with a shop with all different stamps and dies, as well as kits and everything else in between. So I hope you will have a look at Lizi's website, maybe subscribe to her kits. They are really beautiful, fabulously put together kits. And Yeah, that's it. Here's some images of the 10 cards we've made. If you've enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. It helps the YouTube bots know that you like watching my videos. If you're a subscriber, thanks so much for subscribing. And if not, you might click the little bell down below. That way you'll be notified the next time I post new videos. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Reddit, all those social media sites. And I love to hear from you. I love getting your comments. They're so lovely, and I try to respond to everyone. So I hope, if there's something you like, or if there's something that I haven't linked in the description down below, please do leave a comment and I will get back to you as soon as I can. So that's it, folks. I'm going to leave you with the last of the images. Until next time, stay safe, take care. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.